Welcome to the Unit 3 Human Digestion Lab. This video walkthrough is going to focus on Part C, which is protein digestion. Let me read through the procedures for us here. We need to mince the egg, and remember that the egg in this simulation is our source for protein, the egg white, albumin. We're going to spoon the egg pieces into these 6 test tubes we see over here. And then we're going to add these amounts of liquids, various liquids, into each of the 6 test tubes. So remember from part B, if you have 1 dropper full, that's 2.5 milliliters. So 10 mils would be 4 droppers, 5 mils would be 2 droppers. So in this first test tube you see here, you're going to add just water with your egg white. In the second, it's only going to contain pepsin. The third is only going to contain hydrochloric acid. The fourth is going to contain bicarbonate only. The fifth one will have both pepsin and sodium bicarbonate. And the sixth one will have pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Remember that your stomach is the first part of the digestive system that breaks down protein. And in your stomach, you have hydrochloric acid and the enzyme pepsin. Just like the enzyme lactase breaks down lactose, pepsin focuses on proteins. So it's a special chemical that focuses on protein molecules and breaks them down. So whenever pepsin is present, you're going to have a much higher efficiency. Remember also that sodium bicarbonate is a basic solution, and in the digestive system, that would show up in the small intestines. So to neutralize the stomach acid before it passes out. When we are simulating a stomach, we want to make sure that we have the same pH that a stomach would have, which is a very low 1 to 2 that you'd find with an acid. So let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to go through the lab and prepare these test tubes for us. I'm going to dice up the egg first. It minces, it does it all for me. I don't have to do anything. And then I'm going to spoon the egg pieces up into the 6 different test tubes. You don't need to watch me do all of this. It's going to take a lot of time. I'll fast forward to the end. After I've added all the egg, I'm going to come up here, and per this table, I'm going to follow these directions and add the same ingredients that you will from the top shelf up here. So remember that 1 dropper full is 2.5 milliliters. So if I need 10 droppers full of water, then I'm going to put this in 4 times. And so as you can see, that's going to take a while. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to set these up, and then we'll come back. We're not going to see anything interesting until 48 hours. So you're not going to miss anything in the meantime. Hold on 1 second. As you can see, I have finished setting up the 6 test tubes with the required ingredients. The reason this first test tube here is blue is just to indicate that it's water. The second test tube is protein and the enzyme that works to break it down. The third test tube is protein and acid like you'd find in your stomach. The fourth is egg and the base that you'd find at the other end of your digestive system on the way out. The fifth test tube is the pepsin and the base. And the 6th one is the pepsin and the acid. Now, you might be asking why there are so many different of these situations. Remember that when you have an enzyme like pepsin, in order for them to be most efficient, they have to exist at a certain pH level and sometimes even a certain temperature. If the temperature is too high, you'll kill the enzyme that is also a protein, and that won't work. If the pH is too high or too low, then it won't be activated. So for pepsin to work, it needs to be in the presence of a low pH. Like your stomach has a low pH. So the acid and the pepsin together in your stomach break down proteins. What we need to do next in this procedure is to determine what the pH levels of these test tubes are. We haven't really talked about acids versus bases until you get to chemistry. So when I tell you that your stomach is a very low pH, we need to, when we make our predictions, we need to figure out what most closely resembles the pH of your stomach. So I am going to walk you through how to do a pH test with one of these test tubes. I'm only going to walk you through one, and then I'll show you the results of all of them because, again, it takes a long time. You have to pick up the tweezers. A lot of students have a hard time because they don't realize you can't touch the pH strips with your hands. Now, it says that it's green when you start. It didn't already make a test. If you look at this pH chart on the side, green, 7, is neutral. So that's what water ought to be because water is neutral. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick this in the water. Now, you see how the red no sign goes away? It doesn't work until you click it, right? And so it still stayed green because guess what? Water is green. So water is a neutral solution, so it should be a neutral pH, which would be 7 on this scale right here. For a comparison, I am going to take another strip and I am going to test a different tube. When I'm done, I will attach these strips on this board in the order of the test tubes from 1 to 6. But for now, let's see what it would look like if it weren't a neutral solution. So let's zoom in a little bit so you can see what happens. And let's test the one that says acid. Pretty sure that ought to change. And yes, it did. You see now it's a red color, and that was the third test tube. So I am going to attach this board, over here to the board. And I'm going to give myself some space because I have to hang a second one here, and then this is the third one. Pick it up, move it over. And then there'll be 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to run all the tests for you, and then I will hang them all up, and we'll talk about the results when I come back from the video. All right, I have ran the test, the pH test, for all of the test tubes, which is step number 4. And I've hung all of the test strips, the pH test strips, in order of their test tube. We are going to make some predictions in the data table at the bottom of this page about which solution is going to digest the egg white the best. But let's just use some deductive reasoning here. On a pH chart, like you see here, a standard pH strip test will give you a range of colors from red to blue. Red is for acid. I know it's a cheesy mnemonic, but reds are acids. Blues are bases. If you don't know what those are yet, it's okay. Acids are things like lemon juice, stomach acid, vinegar, anything that they call it caustic. Blue things, bases, are soaps. Hand soap, detergents, liquid dish soap is a good example. Bleach, they don't suggest that you play with that too much, but if you did, it feels slippery between your fingers. So your stomach solution is an acid. It falls in the range of 1 to 2 on the pH chart. Water is neutral, and that's a good thing. You want to be able to drink it without having any complications in your body. So it's neutral on the pH scale. And then the blues obviously are your basic ranges. So when we tested the first test tube, we shouldn't be surprised because it's just water, and nothing has dissolved yet, that it's just water. So that should be a 7. Number 2 is pepsin, and number 6 is pepsin. 5, pepsin and sodium bicarbonate. So what you should see here is that the pepsin by itself does not have an extreme of pH. It's also neutral, and it neutralizes whatever's happening with the sodium bicarbonate. So these 3 green test tubes are neutral. There's not going to be any acidic properties to those test tubes. The 2 that are red are simulating the pH of your stomach. So you can have an acid, like you see in the 3rd test tube, acting upon a substance, and it will eventually break it all down. But for your body to use the proteins in the way they're supposed to, they have to use the enzyme pepsin. So the 3rd test tube, which only has hydrochloric acid in there, has the right pH, but it's missing the necessary enzyme to start to break down proteins in a useful way to us. The fourth test tube, the blue one, the pH of that is so high, it wouldn't simulate the proper conditions for your stomach. So even though you do have pH in your digestive system, it's on the other end to neutralize it before it comes out the bottom end. The last test tube here is the right pH scale. It's in the 1 to 2 range, and it also has pepsin. It has that protein enzyme that we need for breaking it down. So I've put the pH strip results already in our column down here at the bottom of the page. All we have to do at this point is add predictions. So the first test tube only being water, I would predict there won't be any reaction, no breaking down. So I'm just going to say no reaction because it's a control, right? The second and the sixth one, the second and fifth are also the same pH. So remember, it has to be the right pH and it has to contain the enzyme pepsin. The fourth test tube has a completely wrong pH, so that's not going to have a reaction because the base is way too high. The last two that I'm going to address are the third and the sixth. They are both at the right pH level, so I would say that's a maybe. It has the correct pH, but it does not contain pepsin. So I'm going to say without the right pH, probably not going to do anything, but this is a prediction, so we're going to leave our question marks in. I am going to say probably, yes, there will be egg white dissolved here because it's the correct pH, and that's the big one, the pepsin is present. So we're going to see if my predictions are right, and feel free to fill these into your own data table.